Tonight, we journey through the skies of history and legend, following a light that has guided the hearts and imaginations of countless generations. A star, bright and mysterious, appearing above a quiet town, drawing travelers from distant lands and inspiring stories that have endured for centuries. We will explore the story of the Star of Bethlehem, tracing its paths through myth, faith, and celestial wonder. From the wise men who followed it, to the mysteries of the heavens that it may have revealed, each detail carries both reflection and imagination. As we travel this night together, let your mind drift with the gentle glow of the star. Consider the quiet awe it must have inspired, the hope it brought, and the questions it still leaves behind, inviting wonder without expectation. If you enjoy these quiet journeys through history and legend, consider subscribing, so you'll never miss the next story, and so we can continue exploring mysteries, myths, and dreams together. And while you listen, we would love to know, what dreams or visions do you often see when you gaze at the stars, or when you think of wonder and light? Write your thoughts in the comments below, softly sharing with others as if following the guidance of a gentle star. Long before maps traced the edges of the world, before the cities of men burned their lights into the night, there was only the endless sky, deep, vast, and full of silent stars. The ancients believed that these shining lights were more than mere points in the dark. They were signs, messages written by divine hands, each one a whisper from the heavens guiding the paths of kings and wanderers alike. And among all those countless stars, one shone brighter than the rest. It appeared in a time of silence and expectation, above the humble hills of Judea, where shepherds kept their watch beneath the chill of a winter night. Some said it was a miracle, others an omen. But all who saw it felt a stirring within, as though the sky itself had opened to announce something sacred. Stories say that in the far reaches of the east, wise men, watchers of the stars and seekers of hidden truth, saw this strange new light rise in the west. To them, it was not chance nor accident. The heavens had spoken, and they listened. The star's brilliance cut across centuries of prophecy and longing, calling them to follow its path toward an unknown promise. They packed their gifts and began their long journey, guided not by roads but by faith. Nights turned to weeks, and weeks to months, as they crossed the empty deserts where the wind whispered ancient names. By day, the horizon shimmered like a mirage. By night, the star burned steady, never fading, always leading like a heartbeat pulsing through eternity. Some imagine the star as a comet, flaring briefly before vanishing into memory. Others dream it was a rare alignment of planets, their light merging in a perfect celestial harmony. But to those who walked beneath it, it was more than science or sight. It was a promise that something extraordinary had touched the earth. In the towns they passed, people would ask where they were headed, and they would answer softly, "We follow the light." And those words carried a quiet power, for deep within, everyone longed for something to follow, something pure, something that made the darkness less vast. And so they continued westward, into lands they had never known, hearts open to whatever awaited beyond the horizon. At times, the star would dim behind the veil of clouds, and they would wonder if the heavens had turned silent once more. Yet always, just when doubt began to settle, the light returned, steady and sure, whispering that their journey was not in vain. For every ancient traveler knew, the journey itself was a form of faith. And perhaps the star did not only hang in the sky, but burned within those who sought it, kindling a quiet hope that glowed against the vastness of night. As the deserts gave way to mountains and the mountains to hills, the wise men drew closer to their destiny, unaware that they were walking not just toward a manger, but into legend itself. And in the stillness of the night, beneath the turning stars, the heavens seemed to hold its breath, waiting for a light far greater than any in the sky to be born upon the earth. The star, silent and eternal, watched over them all. The night air grew colder as the travelers moved west, and the sky deepened into a velvet expanse alive with light. Each evening, They would stop by the edge of their campfires, watching the heavens shimmer with uncountable stars, yet their eyes always returned to the one that never wavered. Its glow was gentle but commanding, a golden flame against the vast silence, as if the cosmos itself had set a lamp to guide the faithful. In the hush between their steps and the sigh of the wind, they often wondered what awaited them. Was it a king, born beneath this divine light? Or a prophet whose words would change the course of nations? None could be certain. But in the quiet, their hearts told them that what they sought was not power, but peace, the kind of peace that calms the soul and makes even the endless desert feel like home, villages passed like dreams. Some doors opened to offer bread and rest, while others closed, wary of strangers following a phantom light. Still, the travelers pressed onward, guided by something beyond logic. They spoke little, yet shared a common silence, a language of faith and awe. Even their animals seemed to sense it, walking more gently, as though aware they were part of something sacred. At times, one of them would lift his face toward the star and feel a strange warmth wash over him. It was not the fire's glow, nor the breath of the desert wind, but something deeper, like the steady pulse of the universe reminding them they were exactly where they needed to be. In such moments, they forgot their weariness, their doubts, their distance from home. All that remained was light, steady and pure. They passed through ancient lands where temples once honored forgotten gods, and where the stones themselves held the memory of prayer. The star rose above them all, neither belonging to one faith nor to one people. It was a symbol older than words, a promise that heaven and earth were never truly apart. Some say that the star was not just a sign for those who saw it, but for all who still search for meaning in the dark. To follow a light that others cannot see is an act of courage, and perhaps that is why this story endures. For in every age, there are those who look up at the night sky and feel that same quiet pull, that same whisper that says, "Come and see." As they neared the lands of Judea, rumors began to ripple through the villages, whispers of a child unlike any other, of a birth foretold by prophets and poets alike. Yet the star remained their only map, and its message was silent. They knew they were close, though none could explain how. It was as though the light itself had entered their hearts, leading them by intuition more than by sight. The path wound through olive groves and silent hills, until one evening, the star seemed to rest above a single town, small, unassuming, wrapped in the soft quiet of night. Bethlehem. A name they had heard only in passing, now glowing with new meaning beneath that unearthly light. And as they drew near, the air seemed to shimmer, filled with a sense of stillness that was not emptiness but presence, a calm so deep it seemed to hush the entire world. Even the stars seemed to lean closer, watching. The travelers paused at the edge of the town. Their long journey, their questions, their wonder, all had led them here. And though they had not yet seen what awaited them, they knew they stood upon sacred ground. The star, patient and unwavering, hung above the place where heaven touched earth. At last, the night of arrival came. The star no longer moved across the heavens, it rested, as though its long purpose had reached its gentle end. Its light poured down over Bethlehem like a blessing, soft and golden, bathing the stone walls and sleeping rooftops in a glow that felt neither earthly nor celestial, but somewhere in between. The wise men entered the town in silence. Their hearts, which had traveled through deserts and doubts, now felt light, not from discovery, but from surrender. There was no grand temple, no palace waiting for them. Only the quiet of narrow streets, the murmur of distant voices, and the faint cry of a newborn carried on the wind. They followed that sound to a small dwelling at the edge of the town, where a dim lantern flickered beside an open door. Inside, a man and woman sat in stillness, and in the woman's arms, a child lay wrapped in simple cloth. There were no trumpets, no crowns, no signs of royalty. Yet the room seemed filled with a peace that words could never hold. The travelers felt the air change, as if time itself had bowed in reverence. The star's light slipped through the cracks in the roof, falling softly upon the child's face. And in that moment, the wise men knew. What they had followed was not a star alone, but a promise, a bridge between heaven and earth, spirit and flesh, light and life. They knelt, not out of custom but instinct, and offered their gifts. Gold for a king, frankincense for a god, myrrh for one who would know both death and divinity. Each gift was a symbol, a whisper of understanding beyond their own knowledge. They did not speak. Words seemed too small in the presence of such quiet wonder. Outside, the world slept. No one knew that history had just shifted beneath the still sky. The star remained above the house, its glow fading as dawn approached. When the first light of morning came, it seemed to melt into the sun, as if its task was complete. The heavens had given their sign, and now the earth carried the light forward. The travelers lingered for a while, unsure whether to leave or remain. They looked at the horizon, then back at the small home, and finally at the child. Something in their hearts told them that the journey was not ending, only changing. For faith, once awakened, does not rest, it continues, seeking new horizons of the spirit. When they departed, they did so quietly, without fanfare or farewell. Their path home was different, not because the roads had changed, but because they had. The star no longer shone above them, but they carried its light within, a soft radiance that would guide them long after the sands had erased their footprints. And so, the story of the Star of Bethlehem was not just a tale of a single night, but of every heart that has ever searched for meaning in the dark. For even now, when we lift our eyes to the sky and see a solitary star burning against the silence, something ancient stirs, a reminder that light still finds us, that wonder still calls, and that sometimes the smallest light can lead us to the greatest truth. The star remains, not in the heavens, but in the quiet places of the soul, eternal, unbroken, and waiting to be seen again. The desert stretched endlessly before them, a sea of gold beneath the burning sun and a realm of silver under the endless stars. The wise men, known to the world as magi, were not kings, but seekers, scholars of the heavens and interpreters of divine mystery. In their homeland, far to the east, they had watched the skies since youth, reading in the movements of stars the stories of gods and men. They lived in a time when the world still believed that the heavens spoke, and that those who could listen might glimpse the will of eternity. For them, a new light in the sky was not merely a celestial event, it was a message. When the Star of Bethlehem first appeared, it shone not as a warning, but as a calling. It burned softly, persistently, unlike any other light they had seen. Something within them stirred, an old promise whispered through generations, now awakening. They gathered in quiet council, surrounded by scrolls and charts marked with the paths of constellations. The oldest among them spoke first, his voice trembling with reverence. "It is a sign," he said, "of a birth unlike any other, a ruler not of nations but of souls." The others nodded, for they too had felt it, that strange peace that filled the air when the star rose. And so, with faith as their compass, they prepared for a journey across the unknown. They brought gifts that spoke of wisdom and prophecy. Gold for the light of kingship, frankincense for prayer and divinity, myrrh for mortality and the shadow that even the divine must one day face. These were not mere treasures, they were offerings born of understanding. When the time came, they mounted their camels and set out beneath the moon. The sands whispered beneath their feet, and the night wind carried scents of spice and faraway rivers. Behind them, their homeland receded into memory. Before them, the star shone unwavering, like an unspoken promise. Each night, they followed it across dunes and valleys, over the faint trails of ancient caravans long forgotten. There were moments when the journey felt endless. The desert silence could seem heavy, as though the world itself held its breath. Yet, when doubt crept near, one would look up, and there the star would be, patient, constant, like a friend waiting beyond the horizon. It did not command, it simply guided. They learned to measure time not by days, but by moments of wonder, a rare oasis reflecting the stars on its still surface. The sound of distant bells carried on the wind, the companionship of quiet minds bound by the same sacred purpose. In these small fragments, they found meaning, proof that even in silence, the divine spoke. One night, as they rested beneath a canopy of stars, one of the younger magi asked, "Do you think we will truly find what we seek?" The elder smiled softly, his face lit by the faint glow of the campfire. "The finding is not the gift," he said. "It is the following. The seeking itself is the blessing." They slept then, each dreaming of a light that burned within the heart, a reflection of the one above. And in the quiet of dawn, when the first colors of morning brushed across the sky, the star still shone, brighter, closer, leading them onward through the endless beauty of the unknown. Their journey had become more than a pilgrimage. It was a conversation with the divine, one carried not in words, but in faith. And though they could not yet see its end, they knew that somewhere, beyond the dunes and the years, destiny waited with open arms. The star remained, patient as eternity, guiding them onward. Days folded into nights, and nights unfolded into endless horizons. The Magi continued westward, their caravan moving like a small constellation across the earth, guided not by maps or kings, but by a single, unwavering light. Each dawn brought new sands, new winds, new silences. Yet through it all, their faith remained their compass, steady as the star above them. Sometimes they passed through ancient towns where the walls whispered of forgotten empires. People stared at them with curiosity, for these travelers seemed to carry the stillness of the heavens themselves. The Magi would pause only briefly, sharing stories of their purpose, not in certainty, but in wonder. And wherever they spoke of the star, hearts would soften, as though the light had reached through the sky to touch them too. There were moments of hardship, sandstorms that erased the path, cold nights when the fire barely held its flame, and long stretches where the horizon offered no sign of life. Yet, each time the wind grew cruel or their resolve began to falter, one would look upward and find the star still burning, steady and bright. Its patience reminded them that faith was not about comfort, but endurance, a promise that light could persist, even when unseen. In the still hours between dusk and dawn, they would sit together by their fading fires and speak of what they hoped to find. One dreamed of wisdom, another of redemption, and one simply longed to feel close to something greater than himself. They did not seek reward, nor recognition. They sought understanding, that fragile, beautiful moment when mystery becomes meaning. The elder Magus often told them stories of other travelers who had followed the signs of heaven. Sailors guided by the North Star, shepherds who watched comets and dreamed of change, prophets who saw visions in the night sky. "The heavens speak softly," he would say, "and only those who listen without fear can hear their song." His words lingered like embers, glowing in the minds of the younger men long after silence returned. As the journey deepened, the bond among them grew strong. They learned to read the rhythm of the desert, how the wind would shift before dawn, how the sands would hum when the heat was near, how even the stars above seemed to breathe. There were nights when they felt as though the sky itself traveled with them, each star a witness, each constellation a guardian. Then one evening, they reached a high plateau where the world opened wide before them. The star above blazed with a radiance unlike any they had seen before, its light spilling across the dunes like liquid fire. They stood in awe, wordless, as though heaven itself had drawn nearer. It was then that they understood. Their journey was nearing its sacred heart. The star did not point to a city of wealth or to a temple crowned with gold. Instead, its light seemed to rest over the quiet lands ahead, where mountains softened into valleys and the air held the scent of olive and myrrh. The elder spoke softly. "Not all kings are found in palaces. Some are born where silence reigns." With renewed strength, they descended into the valley, following the path the light had written upon the world. Their animals walked more gently now, as though aware that the sands beneath their feet were sacred. Even the night wind seemed to hush, carrying only the soft music of the desert, a hymn older than speech, born of stars and longing. And as the Magi pressed onward beneath that patient star, they realized that they were no longer merely searching for a sign. They were part of it. Their footsteps, their faith, their devotion, all had become part of the very story written in light above them. The night was still when they reached the last hill. The star hung low now, its light trembling like a living flame upon the horizon. The air had changed, no longer sharp and dry like the desert, but tender and fragrant, carrying the quiet perfume of earth and warmth. The Magi dismounted in silence, their robes brushed with dust and moonlight, their eyes glistening with the reflection of something greater than wonder. They had traveled through kingdoms and silence, across sands and storm, guided by faith alone. And now that faith brought them to a small village, Bethlehem, asleep beneath a blanket of stars. No trumpets heralded their arrival, no guards stood at the gate. Only the soft breath of wind through olive trees and the faint murmur of animals in the dark. They followed the star until it rested above a humble dwelling, a place too small to house a miracle, and yet the air around it shimmered with peace. The eldest Magus fell to his knees, for he understood what the others could only feel. This light did not come to crown kings, but to sanctify humility itself. Inside, a soft cry rose and fell like the gentlest music. A mother bent over her child, her eyes luminous with both exhaustion and grace. The Magi stepped forward, hearts trembling, their gifts clutched not as symbols of wealth, but of devotion. Gold for a king, frankincense for a god, and myrrh for one who would one day know sorrow. As they placed their treasures before the child, a strange stillness filled the air, not silence, but something deeper, like time itself had paused to listen. In that quiet, the Magi felt their journey come full circle. The star that had burned above them for so long now burned within them. They understood then that the true light was never meant to be found, only followed. The mother smiled, and in that small gesture lay a peace beyond all understanding. It was not the peace of triumph, but of truth, the quiet knowledge that love itself had taken form. The Magi bowed, not to a throne, but to the mystery of life made fragile and infinite all at once. When they stepped outside, dawn was breaking. The star was fading, its purpose complete. Yet they did not mourn its vanishing, for they knew it had only passed from the sky into their hearts. The road home stretched endlessly before them, but they no longer feared the distance. Every mile, every silence, was now illuminated from within. As they journeyed back through the lands they once crossed in longing, they carried more than gifts. They carried a light invisible to all but the faithful. And though the world around them went on unaware, those who met their gaze felt something stir deep within, as if a long-forgotten hope had awakened. The eldest spoke rarely after that night, but once, when a young traveler asked him what he had truly seen, he smiled softly and replied, "We followed a star, and it led us not to power or to answers, but to love itself. The heavens opened not above us, but within us. Years would pass, and their story would become legend, embroidered in song, painted in gold leaf, whispered in the hush of winter nights." Yet the truth was simpler than words could hold. 3 men once followed a light across the darkness, and found that the divine had always walked beside them. And so, as time moved forward and the Star of Bethlehem faded into myth, the spirit of that journey endured, in every heart that still searches the sky, in every soul that dares to believe that even in our darkest nights, something greater calls us onward. The sky has always spoken in silence, and humanity has always tried to listen. Long before telescopes and charts, people looked upward to read meaning in the glittering depths of night. The Star of Bethlehem, they say, was one such message, a light that guided travelers and marked the birth of something divine. Yet through the centuries, scholars and dreamers have wondered, what truly was this star that shone above Bethlehem's hills? Some believed it was a miracle, a light sent by heaven itself, born for a single purpose and gone when its task was done. Others thought it might have been a natural wonder, a comet perhaps blazing across the sky, carrying both beauty and omen in its tail. In the ancient world, comets were seen as harbingers of great change. They appeared rarely, burned brightly, and vanished, leaving behind awe and whispers of destiny. There were those who turned to the planets, studying their alignments. Around the time of the Nativity, some astronomers today suggest, Jupiter and Saturn met in a grand conjunction, two royal lights merging into one brilliant glow. In the eyes of ancient watchers, this might have been enough to stir the world's imagination, a celestial signal that kings had risen, that something sacred had begun. Yet even beyond astronomy, the mystery deepened. Some ancient records speak of novas, stars that suddenly appear, shining for weeks or months before fading into nothingness. If such a light had graced the sky then, it would have seemed miraculous, unexplainable, and divine. For the shepherds who gazed upon it, and the magi who followed, it would not have mattered whether it was a comet, a planet, or a newborn star. It was a sign, and that was enough. In later ages, theologians saw more than physics in its glow. They believed the star was not born of dust and flame, but of will, a creation of the divine, meant to guide the wise to the source of all light. It was not just a symbol, but a participant in the story, moving with purpose, resting above a stable, and marking the moment where heaven touched earth. Still, some wondered if the star existed only in vision, that it was never meant for the eyes but for the heart. A vision shared by those open to wonder, seen only by those whose spirits were quiet enough to perceive it. Perhaps it was not the sky that changed that night, but the people beneath it. Perhaps the star was the awakening of faith, shining within those who dared to believe that light could lead them to truth. And so, the Star of Bethlehem remains many things at once, a miracle to the faithful, a riddle to the scholars, a dream to the poets. It shines across centuries, through scripture and speculation alike, refusing to be contained by either science or story. Its brilliance lies not only in what it was, but in what it continues to mean, that even in the vast darkness of the world, light appears, guiding quietly, without need for explanation. The star may have faded from the sky, but not from the human spirit. Every age seeks its own meaning in its glow. Every heart feels a quiet pull toward its mystery. Whether born from divine will or cosmic chance, its light endures, a silent voice reminding us that wonder and faith are often the same thing, seen through different eyes, under the same unending sky. Across the long centuries, the question of the star became a mirror of human curiosity itself. Every age sought to explain it, to define the light that had once pierced the ancient sky. Yet the more scholars looked upward, the more mysterious it seemed to become. In the early days, monks wrote in candlelight, comparing scriptures and celestial records, searching for harmony between heaven and text. They found fragments, old writings of distant comets, unusual alignments, eclipses that painted the world in silver shadow. Each clue glimmered like a shard of truth, but none formed the full design. Later, as telescopes were lifted toward the heavens, the mystery deepened rather than dimmed. Astronomers mapped the past skies with numbers and machines, tracing the patterns of stars as they might have appeared over Bethlehem 2,000 years ago. Some found the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn, a rare dance of planets that occurred near that time, each planet known in ancient lore as a symbol of royalty and destiny. When they drew close, their light would have merged, forming a single radiant point that could have caught the eyes of those who watched the desert sky in silence. But others disagreed. They said such alignments were not rare enough, not bright enough to move kings from their thrones or magi from their towers. Some pointed instead to a nova, an exploding star, one that would have blossomed in the heavens like a sudden flower of fire. Chinese astronomers, meticulous in their records, noted strange new stars in the sky around the same era. Could it be that what was seen in the west was the same event, crossing cultures like a silent bridge of light? Still others held that it was not the star that moved across the sky, but those who followed it, who gave it motion. That the light was constant, and the journey of faith made it appear alive. It followed them because they believed it did. The miracle in this telling was not in the heavens, but in the hearts of those who sought truth with their feet set toward the unknown. Through the ages, poets and mystics reshaped the story, weaving the star into visions that shimmered between the divine and the human. In art, it was painted as a symbol of revelation, the meeting point between mystery and belief. In song, it became a melody of guidance and peace, echoing the longing of those who still searched for meaning in the quiet night sky. And so, each interpretation became part of the same great constellation, scientific, spiritual, and symbolic alike. Every answer reflected a different kind of faith. The astronomer's faith in order, the believer's faith in wonder, the poet's faith in the unseen. The star welcomed them all, without needing to be owned by any one of them. When the sky turns dark and the stars emerge, the story begins again. Someone, somewhere, will look up and wonder if that same light still burns, not above us, but within. The Star of Bethlehem becomes less a mystery to solve, and more a reminder to feel. To follow light, wherever it appears, not because we must know what it is, but because it calls to something timeless in us all. The night has always kept its secrets well, holding them in the folds of darkness where light dares to wander. The Star of Bethlehem was one such secret, a story written across eternity, impossible to capture, yet endlessly retold. Long after the Magi had vanished into legend, the question remained. What was that light which shone above a world half asleep? Was it a miracle in the heavens, or a message whispered through time itself? In the quiet halls of old observatories, scholars traced the movements of planets on parchment and brass. They found patterns repeating through ages, slow and patient as the turning of a wheel. Some spoke of Venus, the morning star, bright enough to cast shadows in the desert, known since ancient times as a herald of love and creation. Perhaps, they thought, it was Venus that lingered above Bethlehem, shining near the horizon as if keeping watch over the newborn dawn. Others turned to Jupiter, the king of planets, whose steady brilliance had long been linked to rulers and destiny. When Jupiter crossed paths with Regulus, the royal star of Leo, it might have appeared as a cosmic coronation, light bowing to light. The ancient world read such signs as proclamations, not coincidences, and perhaps the wise men, skilled in the sacred art of sky watching, read it that way too. There were even those who looked deeper into mystery. They said the star was not a body of fire or gas at all, but a manifestation, a spiritual light, seen only by those chosen to witness it. A light that moved with intelligence, descended where it willed, and vanished when its purpose was fulfilled. Such an idea was beyond astronomy, but perhaps not beyond belief. After all, there are kinds of light science cannot measure: the glow of faith, the shimmer of hope, the radiance of a soul that sees beyond reason. As centuries passed, the star became not only a subject of study, but a reflection of humanity's own longing for the divine. In its mystery, people found comfort. For if the heavens could bend to mark a moment of love and salvation, then perhaps the universe itself was not indifferent to human life. Perhaps the cosmos was listening, and every spark above was a reminder that we are seen, even in our smallest moments. In time, the story of the star became woven into countless traditions, painted in stained glass, sung in hymns, told to children as the soft light of candles flickered on Christmas night. Each retelling changed slightly, as all stories do when they travel through hearts. Some made the star a symbol of faith, others of guidance, others still of mystery itself. Yet in every version, it pointed toward the same truth. That light, when it appears, is meant to be followed. Perhaps that is the real theory, not of astronomy or physics, but of meaning. The star may have been a conjunction, a comet, or a divine sign, But what mattered most was not its nature, but its call. It asked those who saw it to rise, to leave behind the familiar, and to seek something greater than themselves. And in doing so, it lit not just the sky, but the path of the soul. Even now, on quiet winter nights, when the air is clear and the stars burn cold, one might look up and feel a faint echo of that same wonder. The heavens remain vast and ancient, and still among them there may be one light that seems to shine a little brighter, as if reminding us that long ago a journey began, led not by certainty, but by faith. And perhaps that is what the Star of Bethlehem has always been. Not an answer to be found, but a question that keeps the spirit awake, whispering softly through the ages. Will you follow the light when it calls to you in the dark? In the stillness of a winter night, when the world lay wrapped in quiet expectation, a soft wind moved through the hills of Judea. The stars hung low and clear, their pale fire reflecting on stones and olive leaves. Bethlehem slept beneath the watchful gaze of heaven, unaware that within its narrow streets, a story was unfolding that would change the course of time itself. The town was small, humble, worn smooth by the footsteps of shepherds and travelers. Its houses clung to the hillside, walls of sun-baked clay holding the warmth of the day. But on this night, every doorway seemed to close too early, every inn filled with the press of bodies seeking rest. A young couple, weary from a long road, arrived at last. Mary and Joseph, guided not by comfort, but by faith. Mary's eyes were calm, though her body trembled. She carried within her the quiet weight of a promise, one that glowed with divine mystery. Joseph, steady and kind, searched the streets for a place to rest her, his hands rough from labor, his heart heavy with worry. Yet each door he knocked upon offered the same reply: no room. Only when hope seemed nearly gone did someone gesture toward the edge of town, to a stable cut from the rock where animals sheltered from the cold. There, among straw and the slow breath of beasts, the world grew silent enough for a miracle. Mary sank into the straw, the night wrapping around her like a shawl. The air smelled of earth and hay, of life itself. A single oil lamp flickered, its flame trembling as if it too waited. Then, in that hidden corner of the world, beneath the endless watch of stars, the child was born. The sound was small, a soft cry, the first heartbeat of salvation. Joseph held his breath as if afraid the moment might shatter if he moved too quickly. Mary looked upon her son, her eyes glistening with the light of both wonder and exhaustion. She wrapped him in simple cloth, pressing him to her chest where warmth met warmth. There were no trumpets, no grand procession, only the pulse of life, quiet and eternal. Outside, the wind shifted. Far on the hills, shepherds tended their flocks beneath the open sky. Their fires burned low, and the bleating of lambs echoed faintly through the night. One by one, they looked upward, startled by a sudden brilliance that split the darkness. A light brighter than flame, more real than dream, filled the air around them. They fell to their knees as a voice, clear as song, rose through the stillness. Do not be afraid, for behold, I bring you good news of great joy that will be for all people. Today in the town of David, a Savior has been born to you. The words hung in the air like stars, trembling with beauty. And then the heavens opened wider still. Countless lights appeared, an unseen choir singing glory into the night, the sound rolling like the sea, soft and endless. The shepherds wept without knowing why, their hearts lifted beyond themselves. When the light faded, they looked at one another, breathing hard, and without a word, they began to run. Through fields and valleys they went, stumbling over stones, drawn by something greater than fear or doubt. The star guided them, shimmering faintly above the town. When they reached the stable, they stopped, for within its shadowed doorway they found exactly what had been promised. There was no throne, no gold, no crown. Only a young mother, her face lit by the dim glow of a lamp, and a newborn child resting in her arms. The shepherds knelt, unsure what to say, and Mary smiled, not with pride, but with the deep peace of someone who understands the weight of a gift too large for words. The lambs bleated softly outside, the night wind whispering through the cracks in the stone. In that still moment, time itself seemed to pause, all creation holding its breath, as if to listen. And in the heart of Bethlehem, a fragile light began to grow, the kind that does not blind or burn, but warms and stays. Dawn crept slowly across the hills of Bethlehem, touching the stone walls and rooftops with pale gold. The town stirred awake, unaware that within its quiet heart, something sacred had already taken root. The shepherds still knelt in silence, their rough hands folded like children at prayer. They had no words for what they felt, only a sense that they stood at the very edge of eternity. Mary watched them with gentle eyes, the child asleep in her arms. His breathing was soft, steady, untroubled. She felt the rhythm of it against her chest, and thought of the promise the angel had spoken, that this small life, this fragile heartbeat, would bring peace to the weary and light to those who dwell in shadows. She did not yet understand how, only that it was true. Joseph sat nearby, his back against the rough wooden beams, gazing at the sleeping child. He had dreamed of simpler things once, a home, a workshop, a quiet life. Now he guarded a miracle. The weight of it pressed upon him, not as a burden, but as a solemn trust. Outside, the morning light widened, stretching across the fields where the shepherds' flocks grazed once more, calm and unafraid. When the shepherds finally rose to leave, they did so quietly, as though waking from a vision too delicate to disturb. They promised to tell others what they had seen, though they knew many would not believe them. Still, something within them had changed. The night had entered their bones, the light, the song, the voice that spoke peace. They walked home slowly, their hearts burning with an unseen fire. Mary and Joseph remained in the stable for a while longer. People passed by outside, unaware that history had just turned its page. The world still went on. Merchants shouted in the marketplace, water was drawn from the wells, children chased each other through the alleys, but a new silence hovered above it all, like breath before the first note of a song. As the day faded, travelers began to leave Bethlehem. The census had drawn them from far and wide, and now, like birds after a storm, they scattered. Yet in the midst of this coming and going, the star still shone, a strange and wondrous beacon, brighter than before. Some said it was a comet, others a sign from the gods, but for those who had seen the child, it was something far greater, the symbol of hope made visible. In the days that followed, visitors came quietly. Old women brought bread and cloth, their faces lined with awe. A farmer brought milk, placing it beside the manger with trembling hands. They did not stay long, they only knelt, whispered prayers, and went away lighter than they came. It was as though Bethlehem had become a heartbeat, one that pulsed with reverence and wonder, hidden yet alive. Mary pondered all these things in her heart. When she closed her eyes, she saw again the faces of the shepherds, the glow of the angel's light, the calm within her soul when the child first cried. Sometimes she felt fear, the kind that comes with knowing you have been chosen for something too vast to comprehend. But then the child stirred, reaching his tiny hand toward her, and all fear melted into warmth. The nights grew colder. Joseph kept the fire burning and listened to the wind whispering through the cracks. He often looked up at the star, thinking of the travelers it might guide, men from distant lands, scholars, seekers of truth. He didn't know that even then, far across deserts and kingdoms, such men were already watching the same sky, already preparing their journey toward that single point of light. And so the days passed, quiet as snowfall. Bethlehem became a cradle of divine stillness, a place where heaven brushed gently against the earth. No kings had come, no armies had marched, yet something unseen had already conquered the hearts of those who believed. In the distance, dogs barked, carts creaked along the road, life continued as it always had. But under the same sky, a mother hummed softly to her child, and the sound was the sound of hope itself. Night had returned to Bethlehem, soft and deep. The sky was a river of quiet stars, and at its heart burned one brighter than the rest. It shimmered above the hills, steady and patient, as though it too were keeping watch. Within the humble shelter, Mary sat beside the manger, the child asleep once more. Each breath he drew seemed to fill the air with stillness, a stillness that made even the shadows seem to listen. Outside, the wind moved gently through the olive trees, whispering secrets older than time. Bethlehem itself was wrapped in silence, not the silence of emptiness, but of wonder. Somewhere in that stillness, something sacred was unfolding, unseen yet eternal. Mary leaned close and watched the small rise and fall of the baby's chest. She wondered how something so small could hold such boundless promise. The angel's words often echoed in her mind. He will be great, and his kingdom will have no end. And though she did not fully understand, she believed with all her heart. Faith was her lantern in the dark. Joseph stirred from his rest, the firelight painting soft gold upon his face. He looked toward Mary and the child, and for a long time he said nothing. There were no words large enough for what he felt, only gratitude and awe, and a quiet resolve to protect this fragile beginning. He thought of the long road ahead, the dangers they might face, but for now they were safe. And that was enough. In the fields beyond the town, the shepherds spoke of what they had seen. Their voices were low, reverent, almost afraid to disturb the memory. Some doubted themselves. Had it been a dream? A vision born from exhaustion and starlight? Yet every time they looked toward the heavens and saw the star still burning, their doubt faded. Something extraordinary had indeed happened, and they had been there to witness it. Far from Bethlehem, travelers began to notice the same light. Wise men from distant lands, watchers of the heavens, read the sky like scripture. To them, stars were not mere fires of distant suns, but messengers of divine will. And this one, they said, spoke of a new king. They gathered gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh, and began their journey west, guided by the same star that shone over the stable that night. Days turned to weeks, yet the light did not fade. Bethlehem's streets grew quieter as the census came to its end. Most travelers had returned home, and the town fell into a peaceful rhythm once more. But for Mary and Joseph, time itself seemed to move differently. Each day with the child was both ordinary and miraculous. The laughter of birds, the warmth of sunlight on his face, the gentle weight of his tiny hand resting in theirs. Sometimes at dusk, Mary would hum to him, her voice mingling with the evening breeze. She sang of love and light, of promises older than the stars. She did not know the full measure of his destiny, only that he was meant for something beyond her understanding, something vast and beautiful, perhaps sorrowful too, but filled with meaning. There were moments when the child would open his eyes, and in their depths was something ancient, a calm that seemed to see through time itself. In those moments, Mary felt both joy and trembling, as though she were gazing at eternity clothed in flesh. And so, in the quiet heart of winter, beneath the gaze of an eternal star, the story of redemption began. Not with trumpet or throne, but with breath and silence, with straw and starlight, with a child who would one day change the world. Bethlehem slept that night, unaware of the wonder that rested within its walls. The air was cool, the sky vast and eternal. A mother dreamed beside her son, a father stood watch, and the heavens, for a moment, seemed close enough to touch. The star lingered, burning above the world like a promise, a single light in an ocean of darkness, whispering to all who saw it, "Follow me, for hope has been born." Long before maps were drawn and kingdoms were named, the sky was the first storybook. Its pages turned with the movement of stars, and its words shimmered in constellations that no one could touch, but everyone could see. To the ancients, the heavens were alive, filled with signs, omens, and messages whispered from gods to mortals. When they looked upward, they did not see emptiness, they saw meaning. Each night when the world grew still, people would gather outside their homes, on rooftops or hillsides, and gaze upward. The Milky Way spilled across the dark like a river of crushed pearls. The moon, luminous and steady, moved with a rhythm that shaped their calendars and their crops. They did not yet know of gravity or orbits or light years, but they felt, deep in their hearts, that the sky was a bridge between Earth and eternity. In ancient Mesopotamia, the priests of Babylon climbed the great ziggurats to watch the heavens. They kept careful records of the stars' movements, believing that each alignment foretold the will of the gods. When a bright light crossed the sky, a comet, a meteor, they whispered of destiny. Every flicker of light was a message, every eclipse a divine revelation. To them, the universe was a grand dialogue, written in fire and shadow. In Egypt, the same reverence filled the desert air. The people saw the stars as eternal spirits, and the rising of Sirius marked the flooding of the Nile, the pulse of their civilization. The great pyramids, still standing in the silence of sand, were built not only as tombs but as celestial markers, aligned with Orion and the North Star. Even the Sphinx, carved from the bones of the earth, gazed eternally toward the east, the direction of rebirth. Farther east in China, court astronomers observed the heavens with devotion and dread. They believed that the sky's order mirrored the harmony of the empire. When new stars appeared, emperors trembled. When the moon swallowed the sun, nations prayed. The celestial and the earthly were woven together, one reflecting the other in perfect balance, and across the seas, the Greeks turned the heavens into stories. They gave the constellations names, heroes, monsters, and gods, as if to keep memory alive in the stars themselves. To them, the sky was not distant, but deeply human. Orion hunted among the stars. Andromeda was chained to her glittering rock. Zeus watched from his hidden throne beyond the clouds. Through myth, the Greeks transformed the infinite into something the heart could understand. But among all these ancient wonders, one night shone brighter than the rest. A single star, more radiant than any before, appeared in the west. Some said it was a sign of the birth of a king. Others believed it was Jupiter and Saturn meeting in perfect harmony, forming a beacon of divine significance. Whatever it was, the ancients knew it was no ordinary light. They felt it, the same way one feels a shift in the wind, a silent certainty that something sacred was happening. Even those far removed from Bethlehem's hills felt the pull of that star. In Persia, astronomers recorded an unusual brilliance in the heavens. In India, sages spoke of divine births foretold by celestial fires. Across the known world, people lifted their eyes and wondered what new era might be dawning. The ancients lived in a world where the sky was alive with meaning. They read the heavens like scripture, trusting that the divine moved not only among mountains and temples, but among the constellations themselves. For them, to gaze upon the stars was not simply to see beauty, it was to touch mystery, to glimpse eternity. And in that mystery, they found comfort. For though the stars were unreachable, they were constant. They rose and fell with the same grace every night, whispering to humanity that they were not alone, that above all their fears and wars and fleeting lives, there was a rhythm, a design, a light that endured. So they built their temples to mirror the heavens. They buried their kings beneath star-aligned corridors. They named their children after constellations, as though hoping a fragment of eternity might cling to their souls. Every civilization, in its own way, sought to capture that wonder, the silent fire that glowed in the dark sky and stirred the human heart to dream. And perhaps that is what made the Star of Bethlehem so powerful. It was not merely a celestial event, but a continuation of this longing, the same desire that had driven generations to seek meaning in the heavens. For when they saw that single star, brighter than all the rest, they did not see coincidence. They saw connection, a light bridging heaven and earth. There were nights when the ancients believed the sky itself was breathing, when the stars shimmered as though whispering secrets too vast for human tongues. To them, the universe was not silent, It was a grand choir of lights, each voice singing in harmony with unseen realms. The ancients did not separate the heavens from the divine. The two were one, inseparable, eternal. In Babylon, scholars of the stars stood watch through the long hours of the night, wrapped in linen robes as the desert winds brushed over the high terraces. They recorded each wandering light, mapping the heavens with a devotion born of faith and fear. When a new star appeared, they marked it as a message from the gods, sometimes joyous, sometimes ominous. It was believed that the birth of kings, the fall of empires, even the fate of entire civilizations could be written across the sky. These watchers of the night were not alone. Across the Nile in ancient Egypt, priests stood within temple courtyards as the stars traced their mirrored patterns above the sacred river. They saw the heavens as the realm of the eternal, a reflection of the divine order upon which all earthly life depended. The god Nut, whose body arched across the night sky, was said to swallow the sun each evening and give birth to it anew at dawn. In that eternal rhythm, they found proof that life and death were simply two breaths of the same endless cycle. To the Mayans of the far west, the stars were time itself, sacred gears turning the universe. They built temples that aligned perfectly with the rising and setting of the sun during solstices, believing that to watch the heavens was to understand the language of creation. In their stone calendars, they carved the motions of Venus and Jupiter, tracking their dances with a precision that astonishes scholars even today. To them, these lights were not distant. They were living powers that governed destiny. The Greeks, with their gift for storytelling, turned celestial order into myth. When they looked upon the constellations, they did not see chaos. They saw meaning shaped into stories. The hunter Orion pursued the daughters of the Pleiades through the night sky. Perseus rode on Pegasus, frozen forever in triumph above the horizon. Each constellation became a mirror of the human soul, brave, flawed, yearning, eternal. Through their myths, the Greeks gave the stars faces and hearts. The Romans inherited these skies and their stories, weaving them into their own belief in fate. For them, omens were a language, comets were the ink of the gods. When Julius Caesar was murdered, a great comet appeared over Rome, and the people declared it was his soul ascending into heaven. From that moment, the heavens became the empire's silent witness, forever tied to the destiny of rulers and nations. And yet, even beyond politics and myth, there was something deeply human in the way ancient people gazed at the stars. It was the same quiet wonder that draws us to the night sky today, that longing for connection, for understanding, for a glimpse of something greater than ourselves. In every age, the stars became the bridge between what is known and what is felt. When travelers wandered the ancient roads, they used the constellations to find their way. The North Star, steadfast and constant, guided sailors across dark waters. The Southern Cross shone for those far below the equator, a celestial compass in the great expanse of night. These lights, unchanging yet alive, became symbols of trust, of faith that even in the deepest dark, there was direction. Perhaps that was what made the Star of Bethlehem so significant when it appeared. For generations, people had searched the heavens for meaning. They had charted, prayed, and dreamed beneath its glittering dome. And then, one night, a light unlike any other was said to have appeared, a sign that seemed to bring together all that ancient humanity had ever hoped for. It was not simply that a new star had risen. It was that the world had long been waiting for it. Across empires and deserts, priests and prophets had looked upward, certain that one day the heavens would reveal something sacred, something that would bridge the distance between the divine and the mortal. When that light shone, it was as though centuries of faith and searching had finally found their answer. And so the ancients continued to gaze upward, their eyes filled with both wonder and recognition. For in that celestial fire, they saw not just a star, but the reflection of their own endless longing to understand the mysteries above. The sky was vast, yes, but within its endless expanse, they found meaning, beauty, and hope. The stars have always been silent, yet they have spoken more than any voice could. Their language was not of words, but of light, faint, patient, eternal. The ancients listened to that light, tracing its path across centuries, believing that through it, the heavens were telling their stories. Every flicker carried the weight of destiny. Every eclipse, every comet, was a divine whisper in the great stillness of night. In ancient Chaldea, sky watchers wrapped themselves in robes against the cold as they peered into the darkness. Their tools were simple, their devotion unshakable. With reed pens and clay tablets, they marked the movement of stars, creating the earliest maps of the cosmos. What they saw was not science, but revelation. They read in those patterns the rise of kings, the fall of empires, the timing of sacred rituals. To understand the heavens was to draw closer to the mind of the divine. And yet, even as they gazed upward, they understood the humility of their position, small beneath an infinite sky. The more they observed, the more they were reminded of their own fragility. The stars endured while human lives flickered briefly like candles in the wind. Still, that smallness did not frighten them, it comforted them. To be part of something vast and unending was to know peace, to know one's place in a universe of order and wonder. In Greece, philosophers and poets sought not just to read the stars, but to understand the harmony that bound them. Pythagoras spoke of celestial music, an invisible symphony played by the motion of the spheres. Plato imagined the soul's journey as one of returning to the stars, the origin and the destination of all existence. To these thinkers, the sky was not simply a backdrop. It was the soul's reflection, pure and radiant, calling the human spirit to remember. In Rome, astrologers became powerful voices in the courts of emperors. Before wars or coronations, they would consult the heavens. If Mars blazed brightly, it was a sign of conquest. If the moon grew dim, it warned of loss. For all their might, rulers still bowed to the mystery above them, for even the crown could not command the stars. The heavens were a reminder that every throne, no matter how high, stood beneath the same boundless night. Far to the east, Chinese astronomers kept records that spanned millennia. They chronicled guest stars and heavenly patterns with astonishing precision. In their philosophies, the sky's balance reflected the balance of the empire, a cosmic mirror where order on earth could be measured by harmony in the stars. When chaos stirred below, they feared the heavens might answer. When peace returned, the constellations shone more brightly, as though blessing their alignment with the Tao. And yet, across every land and tongue, there was one shared truth. The stars united humanity in wonder. From the peaks of the Andes to the sands of Arabia, people lifted their eyes and felt the same quiet awe. No borders existed beneath that cosmic canopy. Every man, woman, and child belonged to the same infinite story, a story written in light. When the Star of Bethlehem appeared, it was into this ancient conversation that it spoke. The world was ready for its coming, trained by centuries of gazing and longing. It was not just a light in the night sky. It was an answer to generations who had searched the heavens for meaning. Whether that star was a comet, a rare conjunction, or a divine miracle did not matter. What mattered was how it made people feel seen, guided, chosen. For those who followed it, the journey was both outward and inward. As the wise men crossed deserts and mountains, they were also crossing the landscape of the soul. The star led them not only to a destination in Bethlehem, but to the heart of their own faith, to the place where mystery becomes belief. When they finally reached the manger, the light that had guided them did not vanish. It lived on in them, in the eyes of those who believed, and in the stories that would be told for thousands of years. The star became more than an event. It became a symbol of hope, a reminder that in the darkest nights, a single light can still guide the way. And though the ancients are long gone, the stars remain, burning in the same quiet rhythm. They shine over new empires and old ruins alike, indifferent, yet somehow intimate. Perhaps that is the truest wonder, that across all ages, the heavens continue their silent song, inviting every generation to look up and remember that they, too, are part of something eternal. The same constellations watched over the first farmers, the pharaohs, the prophets, and now us. The stars do not change, but they remind us that we can. Every gaze upward is an act of faith, a promise that even when the world feels uncertain, there is still beauty above, steady and shining. Long before telescopes traced their glass eyes across the heavens, stars were the oldest language humanity ever learned to read. They told stories to shepherds and sailors, whispered of fate and fortune, and shone over the silent moments of history. But among all the stars that ever burned, one shines brighter in the memory of humankind, the Star of Bethlehem. To some, it was a beacon of divine promise. To others, a symbol of hope reborn when the world was at its darkest. In the quiet hills of Judea, that single light became more than a celestial body. It became a sign, a bridge between heaven and earth, between prophecy and fulfillment. The ancients believed stars were souls, angels, or messengers carrying divine intent through the endless dark. The Star of Bethlehem carried the greatest message of all, that something sacred had entered the human world, and the heavens themselves rejoiced. In Christian tradition, the star's glow is more than a mark of direction. It is revelation. It guided the wise men, but it also illuminated meaning. It reminded those who looked upon it that even the vast, cold sky bends toward compassion. The Magi followed not because they understood, but because they believed. That is what makes the star powerful. It calls not to the mind, but to the heart. Across ages and continents, the symbol of the star has echoed through faith, art, and song. In medieval tapestries, it gleams over the manger like a promise suspended in time. In Renaissance paintings, its rays stretch across night skies filled with angels and wonder. In carols sung centuries later, the star still shines as the guiding light that leads the weary traveler home. But beneath its brilliance lies something more intimate. The star represents guidance in uncertainty, clarity in confusion, light amid shadow. It tells the story of every soul searching for meaning in the dark, every heart that has ever looked upward and whispered, "Show me the way." In that sense, the Star of Bethlehem is not confined to one night or one place. It is a mirror of our longing, a reflection of our need to believe that light will always find us. Even in the language of dreams and myth, stars are the compass of the soul. The Star of Bethlehem shines not only as a sign of birth, but of becoming. It speaks to those who wander, to those who wait, and to those who hope. And perhaps that is its truest symbolism, not as a distant light, but as a promise that glows quietly within us all. Through the long centuries, the Star of Bethlehem has come to mean far more than a celestial body shining in the night. To countless hearts, it has become a symbol of hope, the promise that even in the darkest times, light will find its way through. The story of the star is not merely about the birth of a child, but about the awakening of faith across the world, a reminder that even the smallest glimmer can guide a soul home. In the quiet hush of winter nights, when the cold winds whisper through sleeping towns, many still look to the heavens and remember that light once appeared to those who sought truth. The wise men followed it across deserts and foreign lands, trusting that it would lead them not just to a place, but to understanding itself. The star, in that way, is a reflection of the inner journey we all take through uncertainty, through longing, towards something greater than ourselves. Ancient texts often spoke of light as divine revelation. In early Christian writings, the star was described not only as a sign of Christ's birth, but as a message from God, bridging heaven and earth. It told of a world no longer bound in silence, but illuminated with meaning. For the first believers, this light was the dawn of grace, the moment when eternity bent low to touch the mortal world. But the star's symbolism extends far beyond religion. In nearly every culture, stars have represented destiny, transformation, and guidance. The Egyptians looked to Sirius to mark the flood of the Nile, The Greeks saw constellations as divine stories written across the sky, and travelers of every age relied on starlight to find their way. Perhaps that is why the story of the Bethlehem star endures. It belongs not only to faith, but to the universal human need for direction and wonder. The star also speaks to the human condition, to our endless search for meaning in the vastness of existence. Each of us, in some quiet way, has followed a star, a dream, a calling, a truth we cannot see but somehow know. We chase it through confusion and through shadow, believing that if we keep walking, the light will not lead us astray. The Star of Bethlehem, then, becomes a mirror of our own hopes, an eternal metaphor for the guidance that flickers within the heart. In art and poetry, the star is often portrayed not with brilliance, but with gentleness. It shines softly, as if aware of the fragile souls who look up in longing. Its light does not command, it invites. It whispers rather than shouts. And in that whisper is the language of faith itself, a call to listen, to follow, and to trust. Some believe the star represents divine timing, the perfect alignment of heaven's will and earth's readiness. It appears only when the world needs it most, guiding those willing to seek its glow. In this, the star becomes both a sign and a promise that even when we lose our way, there will always be something or someone to light the path again. So when we gaze upon a star at Christmas, it is more than decoration or memory. It is a symbol of possibility, of faith renewed, of journeys yet to begin. The same light that once led wise men through the desert still glows quietly in the hearts of those who believe that hope never truly fades. It only waits to be seen again. There are moments in life when the night feels endless, when silence stretches wide, and the soul forgets that dawn will ever come. Yet even then, above the vast darkness, a single star burns quietly, untouched by storm or shadow. The Star of Bethlehem is that kind of light, not blinding, not loud, but eternal. Its glow is the whisper of assurance that there is meaning behind all things, even when we cannot yet see it. Over time, the star came to represent not just the birth of a savior, but the birth of faith itself. Faith that something unseen can still guide us. Faith that light can come from the humblest of beginnings. It shone not above palaces or towers, but over a small stable in a forgotten corner of the world. The light of heaven chose to rest among straw and stillness, as if to remind us that truth often hides in the simplest places. In the centuries that followed, this star became woven into the fabric of winter celebrations. It crowns Christmas trees, adorns nativity scenes, and glimmers on cards and lanterns across the world. Yet behind its beauty lies a question that still lingers. What does it mean to follow the star today? Perhaps to follow, it means to listen, not just to the voices of others, but to the quiet pulse within your own heart. To walk forward even when the path is uncertain, guided by something that cannot be proven but deeply felt. The Magi traveled far without a map, trusting only in the light above. In a world of noise and endless distraction, that kind of trust feels almost impossible. And yet, it remains what we all secretly long for. The star also speaks of connection, of how a single light can bring together those who are worlds apart. The wise men came from the east, shepherds from the fields, angels from the heavens. All were drawn by the same glow. In its radiance, the divisions of rank and distance faded. The star did not choose the worthy, it called to the willing. Spiritually, the star continues to shine as a symbol of rebirth. It tells us that even when faith wanes, it can be rekindled. Even when love is forgotten, it can be remembered. Every time we light a candle, hang a lantern, or gaze at a distant star, we repeat the same act of hope that began in Bethlehem, the hope that light will return. And so, through every age, the Star of Bethlehem remains both a mystery and a message. Its meaning cannot be confined to a single interpretation, for it speaks differently to every soul. To some, it is the mark of divine promise. To others, a symbol of inner awakening. But to all who see it, it is a reminder that light, once kindled, can never truly die. Even now, as centuries pass and the skies themselves change, the story endures. It is told in carols, painted in gold, whispered in the hush of Christmas night. Somewhere a child looks up at a star and feels the same wonder that guided kings long ago. The heavens still watch over us, the same light still glows, and the message is unchanged. Follow the light, and you will find peace. Each December, as the world begins to shimmer with light, countless homes hang a star atop their Christmas trees, a quiet echo of a story born more than 2,000 years ago. That single radiant emblem has endured the ages, crossing oceans and cultures, glowing above cities and villages alike. Yet beneath its gentle sparkle lies a deeper tradition, one that ties humanity together in an unbroken chain of wonder, remembrance, and faith. The Star of Bethlehem, as told in Scripture, guided wise men across deserts and kingdoms toward a humble manger. But long after the star faded from the sky, its meaning endured, reborn each winter through candlelight and celebration. Early Christians saw it as a symbol of divine guidance, a celestial reminder that the heavens once bent close to the earth. As the faith spread through lands that celebrated winter solstice, the star became a bridge, linking old rituals of light conquering darkness with the new story of hope and renewal. In medieval Europe, nativity plays brought the tale to life. Children and elders alike would gather in small chapels or candlelit halls as a bright star, crafted from wood and gold leaf, was raised above the scene. It shone not only to mark the birth of Christ, but to invite the audience into the mystery, to remind them that the same light could guide their own wandering hearts. From those simple performances, the star slowly found its way into every home, resting atop evergreen branches as a sign that divine light dwells even among ordinary lives. In the Philippines, the parol, a beautiful star-shaped lantern, became one of the most beloved symbols of Christmas. Crafted from bamboo and paper, it represents the Star of Bethlehem shining in tropical nights, a handmade prayer that joy and faith still travel through every street. Across Germany and Scandinavia, star-shaped candles flicker in windows, guiding travelers through snow and dark. In Latin America, processions called Las Posadas reenact the journey of Mary and Joseph, often ending beneath a bright star, where families share food, song, and prayer. Though each culture celebrates differently, they all trace their light back to that same celestial moment. The star, whether carved, folded, or lit, has come to embody the soul of the season: generosity, unity, and wonder. It is a beacon that transcends religion or nation. Its meaning speaks to anyone who has ever searched for hope in the dark. There is something profoundly human about this act of lighting stars each year. It's as if we, too, are trying to recreate that night, to remind ourselves that light can still find us, that it can still guide us home. Every spark on a tree, every lantern in a window, carries a whisper of that same truth. We are all pilgrims under one sky, following whatever light we can find. And perhaps that is why, even in times of sorrow or doubt, people continue to lift their eyes when the stars appear. The tradition endures because it feels ancient and immediate all at once, a ritual not just of memory, but of promise. To place a star upon a tree is to say, without words, that we still believe in guidance, that we still trust in the quiet brilliance of something beyond ourselves. In every glimmer of tinsel, in each reflection of golden light, there is a faint memory of that ancient sky. The star that once guided the Magi has been reborn countless times, reshaped by faith, by art, and by the gentle persistence of human longing. It has become more than a story from Scripture. It has become a ritual of remembrance, retold every December through the flicker of candles and the rhythm of carols sung beneath winter air. In the earliest centuries of Christianity, before churches rose from stone, small gatherings of believers met under open skies. They looked up at the constellations, finding comfort in the thought that heaven once sent a sign to earth, a radiant messenger that united kings and shepherds. Those who could not read the sacred texts found their gospel in the stars, tracing with their eyes the hope that had once shone over Bethlehem. In time, this reverence for celestial signs mingled with older pagan traditions that honored the solstice. The darkness of winter became a canvas for divine light, and the star, luminous and enduring, became its symbol. By the Renaissance, artists began to paint the Nativity in ways that drew the heavens close. A radiant star often hovered above the stable, painted in gold leaf that caught the light just so, an earthly echo of the celestial wonder. In these works, the star did not simply illuminate the Christ child, it illuminated the human soul. It reminded viewers that the divine was not distant, but present, glowing softly in every act of compassion and kindness. In Victorian times, when Christmas traditions flourished in England and America, the star became a symbol of home and warmth. Families gathered to decorate trees, often placing a handcrafted star at the very top. This act, simple and universal, carried a quiet message. It said, "We remember. We remember the journey, the promise, the light that once guided the weary." And so, even in the industrial age of iron and steam, humanity still turned to the stars for meaning. In some homes, the star was carved from wood, in others, made of glass or paper. Some shone with the glow of candlelight, while others sparkled with the first electric bulbs. Yet all of them pointed upward, toward something unseen but deeply felt. The act of placing that star became a sacred pause in the noise of life, a moment to breathe, to hope, to remember that every light begins with darkness. Even now, when city lights outshine the night sky, the tradition endures. On quiet evenings, people still gather beneath trees, whispering wishes as they plug in strings of stars. Some do it for faith, others for nostalgia, others simply because it feels right. But all of them, knowingly or not, are participating in a story older than any one generation. The star remains, glowing in living rooms and cathedrals alike, as steady as the heartbeat of winter. And perhaps within that soft glow, there is a message meant for us still. That wonder is not something lost to time, but something we keep alive. The light we place upon the tree each year is the same light that guided the wise men, that inspired saints and dreamers, that told every weary traveler, "You are not alone." Somewhere in every winter night, beneath roofs of snow and ceilings of quiet light, the story of the star continues. It no longer burns above a stable in Bethlehem, yet it shines in countless ways, in laughter shared beside a tree, in the soft glow of lanterns lining a path, in the hush that settles when families gather close. The star has become not just a sign of faith, but a symbol of connection, a light shared by hearts across centuries. It is said that traditions survive because they hold something timeless within them, and perhaps that is what the star does best. Each year, when hands lift it to the top of a tree, something ancient stirs, a memory older than memory itself. It is the same longing that led the wise men to follow the light across unknown lands, the same yearning that moved shepherds from their flocks to witness a moment of grace. That longing never left us. It simply changed form, becoming the light we now kindle in our homes. Across cultures, this tradition has taken many shapes. In Poland, a special wafer called opletek is shared before the first star appears in the sky on Christmas Eve, a reminder of unity and forgiveness. In Finland, families visit cemeteries and light candles by the graves of loved ones, turning the night into a sea of flickering stars. In Mexico, brilliant faroles, lanterns in the shape of the Bethlehem star, guide carolers through the streets, illuminating songs of faith and joy. Each of these customs, though separated by oceans, carries the same truth. The human spirit is drawn to light, especially when the world feels cold and dark. Even in the modern world, where stories compete with screens and skies glow with artificial light, the Christmas star remains untouched. It may hang in plastic or glass now, but its meaning is still alive, a whisper that crosses every generation. Children see it with wonder, elders with nostalgia, and somewhere between those two, something sacred happens. The star connects what was with what is, past and present folded into one gentle gleam. When we look upon it, we may not think of ancient journeys or divine signs, yet something inside us softens. The act of gazing upward, of pausing to admire that single silent light, reminds us that hope can still guide us home, that love can still be found, even in the smallest glow. It tells us, wordlessly, that there is still meaning in gathering together to celebrate warmth in the cold. So each December, when the star is lifted into place, it is more than decoration, it is an act of remembering. A way of telling the night that we still believe in wonder, that we still seek light in the darkness, that the story, though ancient, lives on in us. And when all the songs are sung and the lights are dimmed, the star remains patient, eternal and kind, reminding the world that the truest light is not above us, but within us. In this modern age of glass towers and glowing screens, the stars above often fade behind the haze of cities. Yet even now, in the quiet corners of night, people still look upward, searching for something that feels eternal. The Star of Bethlehem, though distant in both time and meaning, continues to shine within human hearts as a symbol of hope, direction, and wonder. It is no longer just a story from long ago. It has become a way of seeing, a reminder that every journey begins with a spark of light. For centuries, humanity has followed stars, not just in the sky, but in spirit. Sailors once steered their ships by constellations. Travelers crossed deserts guided by the North Star. Lovers, poets, and dreamers all turned their gaze upward, believing the heavens could whisper something of destiny. The Star of Bethlehem belongs to that same lineage, a light that guided those who dared to seek, who believed that truth might be found in a humble place, far from the palaces of kings. Today, the star has become more than a celestial mystery. It represents the quiet pull of meaning, the instinct to keep walking even when the path is uncertain. People still follow it, though not with camels or gold, but with questions, with prayers, with the fragile courage to hope. In the noise of modern life, where faith often competes with distraction, the story of the star asks us to slow down, to look for guidance not in the glitter of things, but in the stillness of the heart. In churches, homes, and winter festivals around the world, the image of the star endures. Some light it in the windows as a welcome for strangers. Others see it reflected in acts of kindness, a shared meal, a warm word, a simple gift. Each of these gestures becomes a form of following, a step toward that same light that once hung over Bethlehem. To follow the star in truth is not to chase a point of light in the sky, but to carry it within. And perhaps that is why, no matter how the world changes, the story never fades. It belongs to anyone who has ever wandered through darkness and found comfort in something small but radiant. The wise men of old followed the star across great distances. We follow it through our own lives, through choices, through doubt, through the winding paths of time. The shape of the journey changes, but the yearning remains the same. There are moments when the star seems to disappear, when clouds or sorrow obscure it from sight. Yet even then, it lingers, unseen but unforgotten. It reminds us that light is not always constant, but it is faithful. It returns when we are ready to see again. And in that return lies the meaning of hope itself, that even in the darkest night, there is something waiting to guide us home. Sometimes, following the star means walking through uncertainty, through moments when the path is dim and the heart is heavy. The wise men's journey was not marked by clarity or comfort, but by faith. They did not know where the light would lead, only that they had to follow. And so it is with us. The star has become a quiet metaphor for the way we move through life, trusting in what we cannot see, guided by something beyond reason or proof. In this world of rushing clocks and restless minds, such faith feels almost old-fashioned. Yet when the noise fades, most people still feel it, the tug of something luminous calling them forward. It may not be a star in the sky, but a sense, a whisper, a moment of stillness that feels like direction. It might come in the form of kindness from a stranger, the sound of familiar laughter, or the warmth of candlelight on a winter's night. These are the small stars of the modern world, scattered reminders that guidance still exists if we are quiet enough to notice. Some follow the star through devotion, seeking spiritual meaning in the chaos of daily life. Others follow through curiosity, through art, through the search for truth in science or poetry. The light is different for each of us, but the impulse is the same, to find something steady in a changing world. The story of the Magi endures because it reflects this universal journey. It tells us that wisdom begins not in knowing, but in seeking. Even those who do not believe in miracles often find comfort in the idea of the star. It represents alignment, the thought that perhaps, just once, heaven and earth met in harmony. That for a brief moment, the cosmos and the human heart pointed in the same direction. And though centuries have passed, that image still touches something deep in us. We long for meaning, for a sign that our steps are not random, that our searching has purpose. In quiet hours, perhaps you have looked up at the night sky and felt the same wonder, the same stillness that ancient travelers must have known. That feeling, fragile and wordless, is the heart of the story. It does not belong to one faith or one season. It belongs to everyone who dares to look beyond themselves. The star, after all, is not just a light from the past. It is a reflection of what we carry within, the hope that there is something more, something guiding us toward peace. And maybe, in some way, we are still like those travelers of old, moving through our own deserts, across distances not of sand, but of time and doubt. Yet even now, a light shines somewhere ahead. We may not always see it, but we feel its pull. It tells us to keep going, one quiet step at a time, until we find the place where the light becomes love, and the journey finally rests. Across time, the story of the Star of Bethlehem has traveled like a whisper through centuries, shifting from an ancient wonder into a symbol that transcends religion, geography, and era. It no longer belongs only to the Magi or to the night sky of Bethlehem. It belongs to every person who seeks meaning in the quiet dark, every soul who looks beyond the ordinary and yearns for something eternal. To follow the star today is not merely to chase a light above, but to awaken the one within. In our age of noise and screens, the heavens no longer feel mysterious. We can map every star, predict every eclipse, name every comet. Yet despite all that knowledge, the deeper mystery endures. We still lift our eyes to the night sky when we are lost. We still seek that one light that makes the vastness feel intimate. Perhaps the true miracle of the star was not its brilliance, but its ability to speak to human longing, to remind us that even in a cold and endless cosmos, there is direction, there is purpose, there is grace. Following the star today means walking through life with that same spirit of wonder the Magi carried. It means trusting an unseen path. We're not guided by certainty, but by faith. The wise men journeyed across deserts not knowing what awaited them, guided only by light and hope. Their journey mirrors our own, modern pilgrims crossing emotional and spiritual landscapes, guided by inner constellations of belief, love, and conscience. We too follow stars that others may not see, a calling, a dream, a kindness we refuse to abandon. And just as the Magi were changed by the child they found, so too are we changed when we discover our own moments of illumination. The star leads us toward compassion, the kind that asks us to forgive when it is hardest, to give when we have little, to love without condition. Every act of quiet goodness is its own Bethlehem, every selfless gesture a spark of divine light. The more we follow these lights, the brighter the world becomes, until what once seemed distant begins to feel like home. The world has grown skeptical of miracles. Yet miracles still occur, in laughter that returns after sorrow, in strangers helping strangers, in hope that rises again after being broken. These are the modern echoes of that ancient star, flickering in the human heart. To follow the star today is to recognize those moments of grace and to move toward them, no matter how small or ordinary they seem. For even a single act of love can change the darkness around it, just as one light can transform a night. Sometimes we lose sight of the star. Life clouds the sky with worry, grief, or exhaustion. The path grows dim and we forget why we began walking. But the star does not vanish. It only waits for us to look up again. Faith, like starlight, is patient. It does not demand that we never doubt. It only asks that we keep moving, even when the way is uncertain. The Magi surely stumbled, surely questioned, yet still they continued. That is the quiet miracle of faith, the courage to keep following what feels true, even when you cannot see where it leads. Every generation has its own version of the star. For some, it is the pursuit of knowledge. For others, the longing for peace, justice, or beauty. Artists, teachers, healers, and dreamers all are guided by their own radiant compass. What they share is the willingness to be led by something higher than comfort or certainty. And though the world often mocks such hope, it is precisely that hope which shapes history, men's hearts, and carries humanity forward through the ages. The light that once hovered above Bethlehem has never truly faded. It glows now in the small choices of everyday life, in a kind word offered, a burden shared, a truth spoken gently. The star is not gone, it has multiplied. It shines in every soul that chooses love over indifference, wonder over cynicism, faith over despair. And so we walk beneath its quiet glow, each of us pilgrims of our own time. We are still following, still seeking, still learning how to see the divine in the ordinary. Perhaps that is the lesson the Magi left behind. Not that the star was a miracle in the sky, but that the real miracle was the journey it inspired. The heavens will always hold their secrets, but the light we choose to follow, within and around us, will always lead us home. Long after the night of Bethlehem faded into memory, the star remained, a luminous idea that continued to move through the human imagination. Artists and musicians across centuries sought to capture its light, not through astronomy, but through beauty. The star became more than a story of divine guidance. It became a language of hope, a symbol of wonder that transcended faith, culture, and time itself. Wherever the star appeared, in paintings, songs, or poems, it carried the same whisper: look up, for there is still light in the dark. In the earliest Christian art, the Star of Bethlehem was not simply a celestial body, but a sign of divine revelation. In Byzantine mosaics, it gleamed above the infant Christ like a single jewel suspended in gold. Its rays stretched outward, often painted as 8 points, a number of eternity and rebirth. To the ancients, stars were not distant suns but living symbols, each one a thread connecting heaven and earth. The Star of Bethlehem stood at the center of that sacred web, the bridge between divine mystery and human understanding. Medieval painters often placed the star high above a humble stable, its light falling upon the Virgin and Child, as though the heavens themselves were bending to see. In these scenes, the star did not merely shine, it spoke. Its light told a story, a cosmic announcement that something pure had entered the world. The artists, bound by their faith and their longing, used color and light to convey what words could not. That even in the lowliest places, grace could find a home. As art evolved, so did the star. In the Renaissance, painters like Giotto and Botticelli reimagined it not as a symbol alone, but as a spectacle of divine naturalism. Giotto's fresco in the Arena Chapel showed the star with a comet's tail, inspired by Halley's comet, which had appeared in his lifetime. Through that single artistic choice, the Star of Bethlehem became both historical and eternal, a real wonder that could belong to the human sky. Art began to blend the spiritual with the scientific, suggesting that divinity might be hidden within the laws of nature itself. Music, too, became a vessel for the star's light. The earliest carols sang of the guiding light that led the Magi, of the joy and awe it inspired. Gregorian chants echoed softly through stone cathedrals, voices rising like starlight itself, pure and endless. Later composers, Handel, Bach, and beyond, would give the star a voice more radiant still. In Handel's Messiah, the line, "And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed," feels as though it could have been sung beneath that ancient sky. Every note seems to shimmer with the same promise that the star once held, that beauty can reveal the divine. Through centuries, the star's image was shaped and reshaped, sometimes bright and holy, sometimes distant and abstract. In the Romantic era, poets and painters saw it as a symbol of longing and transcendence. They imagined travelers following it across frozen fields, lovers finding it in the eyes of one another, dreamers seeing it mirrored in the depths of their own souls. The star became the emblem of inspiration itself, the mark of every quest for truth or meaning that begins with wonder. Even today, artists return to that light. Every Christmas card bearing a star, every carol sung beneath its name, every film or painting that reimagines that sacred night, they all echo the same ancient desire: to touch the eternal through the act of creation. Modern art has taken the symbol far beyond its origins, painting it not only above Bethlehem, but above all moments of hope. The star appears in children's drawings, in stained glass, in quiet music that plays on winter nights. It has become a light not just for believers, but for anyone who has ever stood in darkness and longed to see beauty again. And perhaps that is why the Star of Bethlehem continues to inspire. It reminds us that art and music are not merely expressions, they are stars of their own kind. Each painting, each melody, each word crafted in wonder becomes another spark in the great night sky of human creation. Like the Magi, we follow these lights wherever they lead, knowing that even the smallest glimmer can guide us toward something greater than ourselves. For though the original star may have faded, its light lives on, in canvases and choirs, in hearts that still dream beneath the dark sky, searching for something holy in the act of creation itself. When the Star of Bethlehem first shone in the night sky, it was seen by shepherds and kings alike, humble and wise, ordinary and divine. Yet long after its light vanished from sight, it began to reappear in 1,000 new forms. Through art and music, people found a way to keep that brilliance alive. Each generation painted it differently, composed it anew, and reimagined what it meant to follow the light. In the centuries following the Renaissance, the star grew into one of the most enduring symbols in Western art. Baroque painters like Rubens and Rembrandt used dramatic contrasts of light and shadow to make it come alive on canvas. The star became a divine spotlight, cutting through the darkness to reveal the sacred truth hidden in human life. In these works, the glow of the star often fell upon weary travelers, sleeping shepherds, or a mother cradling her child, all bathed in that same celestial radiance. It was light as revelation, as mercy, as love. As painting moved beyond religious storytelling, the star's meaning expanded. In the Romantic era, artists like Turner and Friedrich saw it not just as a sign from heaven, but as a reflection of human yearning. The star came to symbolize the search for something infinite, the ache of the soul reaching toward the unreachable. In Friedrich's landscapes, one can almost hear the silence of the night sky, where a single star flickers above snow-covered trees. It is the same star that once guided wise men, now guiding the spirit of humanity toward understanding itself. In the world of music, the star also transformed. Composers began to write not only for worship, but for wonder. In the 18th and 19th centuries, the Nativity story became a wellspring for carols and oratorios, each attempting to capture the miracle of light in sound. Pieces like O Holy Night and Silent Night turned that ancient radiance into melody. Each note carried the warmth of candlelight, the hush of midnight, the promise of dawn. These were not just hymns, they were stars set to music, glowing quietly in human hearts. As the centuries turned, even secular art found itself drawn to the image of the star. Painters of the modern era, like Van Gogh, transformed the heavens into emotional landscapes. In his swirling skies, stars became the language of the soul, restless, radiant, and deeply human. The Starry Night, though not religious in form, captures something profoundly spiritual. That same ancient feeling of smallness and awe beneath a vast and living sky. Perhaps it is not so different from the wonder the Magi felt as they followed their mysterious light. In choral music, the image of the star continues to shine. Modern composers like John Rutter and Morten Lauridsen write works where voices seem to shimmer like distant constellations. The harmonies expand and dissolve, as though echoing through the heavens themselves. Each performance becomes an act of remembrance, a quiet following of that same guiding light through sound. Even in film scores, we hear the echo of that symbolism. Whenever a single note rises against silence, or a melody swells to a soft crescendo, it feels like the light of a star appearing in the dark. The visual arts also kept returning to the image of the star in ways that merged the sacred and the human. In stained glass, it burns in blue and gold. In sculpture, it crowns the tops of churches, piercing the skyline. In photography and cinema, the star often appears as a motif of hope, a promise that something beautiful still awaits beyond the horizon. From medieval cathedrals to modern films, the star has never stopped shining. It merely changes its form to speak to each age anew. And through it all, one truth remains. The star's story is not confined to faith alone. It has become a universal symbol, reminding humanity that even in darkness, guidance can appear. Art and music give that symbol shape and sound, allowing each of us to feel the pulse of something greater, the same pulse that once lit the sky over Bethlehem. Whether we stand in a museum, listen to a choir, or gaze up at the night sky, we are all, in some quiet way, still following that star. Perhaps that is why every artist, knowingly or not, paints a little light into their work. Every melody composed, every brushstroke cast in gold, carries a reflection of that first brightness. The Star of Bethlehem may have shone for a single night, but its echo continues to blaze within us. Through art and music, the light is never lost. It simply takes on new forms, guiding dreamers, seekers, and souls through the ever-deepening night. There is a strange stillness that lives in the moments before music begins, when an audience holds its breath and silence hums like the night before revelation. It is in that hush that the Star of Bethlehem seems to glow once more, invisible but deeply felt. For in truth, the star's light never left the earth. It lingers in every song that carries hope, in every piece of art that reminds us to look upward. The painters and composers who followed in its wake did more than preserve a symbol. They kept a pulse alive, a rhythm of faith that beats softly across centuries. In medieval manuscripts, the star appeared in margins of gold leaf, tiny yet burning bright amid inked prayers. Monks who labored by candlelight saw in its shape the union of heaven and earth, a spark between God and man. Later, illuminated hymns were sung beneath vaulted ceilings, where stained glass stars scattered fragments of color over choirs. The experience was immersive, almost cosmic, light and sound blending until they became indistinguishable. Each shimmer of glass, each note of harmony seemed to echo that one celestial event, the night the world was changed by a single light. In the age of great cathedrals, sculptors carved stars into stone arches, musicians wove them into masses and motets. The star became not just a symbol of Christ's birth, but of illumination itself, divine wisdom breaking through human darkness. Composers like Palestrina and later Bach approached music as if it were a ladder of light, each harmony a rung leading upward toward the infinite. When their works filled churches, the echo of the star could almost be heard in the air itself, vibrating through marble and heart alike. Even when the sacred gave way to the secular, the image of the star continued to haunt creation. In romantic symphonies, the night sky became a metaphor for longing, for something just beyond reach. Schubert's Lieder, Liszt's tone poems, even Debussy's shimmering chords, all seem to chase that same brightness, the idea that beauty could be a form of belief. In their music, the star became an emotion, nostalgia, wonder, love, loss. It was no longer just the Star of Bethlehem. It was the star of humanity, glowing through the veil of time. The modern era scattered that starlight even further. In cinema, the image of a lone light shining against darkness became the universal shorthand for hope. The Star of Bethlehem evolved into every wish upon a star, every guiding beacon in stories of homecoming and discovery. In films, the orchestra swells, and a single glimmer in the night reminds us that even in the darkest moments, something unseen still leads the way. Music composers like John Williams and Ennio Morricone turned that feeling into sound, the sensation of standing before something vast, timeless, and compassionate. Visual artists, too, continue to paint the unseen. In abstract canvases and digital projections, stars are no longer literal. They are emotional landscapes. They represent moments of awakening, of peace, of clarity. The light that once marked a divine birth has become the symbol of inner renewal, the spark that guides us when we lose our way. Across cultures and faiths, the image remains the same, a small point of light that turns night into meaning. And perhaps this is the truest power of the star. It bridges the visible and the invisible. Artists see it not just as an object in the sky, but as an idea that transcends sight. The brush, the chisel, the violin, the human voice, all become ways of reaching toward that light. Every time a carol is sung, every time a star is painted above a quiet manger scene, the ancient story breathes again. The world turns, yet the music of that night never truly fades. In the quiet moments when art and music intersect, the star's essence flickers through time. It reminds us that creativity itself is a form of following, a journey through darkness toward a hidden brilliance. What began as a celestial event became a language, a melody that unites centuries of dreamers. We are, in our own ways, still pilgrims beneath its glow, still listening for the harmony that began with that single shining point above Bethlehem. And though the instruments change, the light endures. The Star of Bethlehem has become a symbol not only of divine guidance, but of human imagination, the spark that moves us to create, to hope, to believe. For somewhere deep in the music, and somewhere hidden in the canvas, that same ancient light still burns quietly on, whispering across time that the journey continues, and that every heart that seeks beauty has, in truth, never stopped following the star. Long after the shepherds left their fields, and the Magi returned to their distant lands, the story of the Star of Bethlehem continued to echo through the centuries. Its light had faded from the sky, but it lingered in the imagination of humankind, a mystery too vast to be contained within a single night. For what was the star, truly? A miracle, a cosmic event, or a symbol of something deeper, something that reached beyond faith into the hidden language of the universe? The questions followed the star across generations, weaving new legends wherever its name was spoken. In the lands that once formed the ancient world, people began to tell their own versions of the story. In the East, Persian scholars whispered that the star was not born of heaven alone, but of divine intention, a harmony between the stars and human destiny. They believed that once in a great age, a light would rise to mark the birth of someone whose life would alter the course of history. To them, the star was not just a sign of one child's coming, but a pattern written into the fabric of creation itself, a cosmic rhythm that repeats, unseen, yet deeply felt. In the deserts of Arabia, wanderers told stories of a star of wisdom that appeared to guide lost souls home. It was said that those who followed it did not always find a manger or a king, but something far more personal, the answers they carried within their own hearts. Each sighting was a quiet reminder that light, in any form, is a promise, that even in the endless dark, there is always something waiting to lead us back to meaning. In early Christian mysticism, the star took on new dimensions. It was not merely a heavenly sign, but a reflection of divine knowledge shining into human understanding. Some early thinkers described it as the light of knowing, the moment when the soul awakens and recognizes the truth it had long forgotten. To them, the star was both literal and spiritual, a meeting of heaven and consciousness. The journey of the Magi became a metaphor for every seeker's path, where the outer voyage through deserts and kingdoms mirrors the inner pilgrimage toward enlightenment. But as centuries passed, new mysteries began to gather around the tale. Medieval scholars debated whether the star was an angel disguised as light, or a rare celestial conjunction meant to declare the arrival of the divine. Astronomers charted the skies backward, seeking the moment when planets might have aligned to form the radiant sign recorded in Scripture. Some found patterns in ancient records, others found coincidence. Yet even among the most rational, there lingered the sense that perhaps the story was never meant to be solved, only pondered, like a riddle written in starlight. Legends from faraway lands also began to merge with the Christian story. In parts of Eastern Europe, it was said that the star was born from a single tear of joy shed by the first dawn when it saw the infant Christ. In Greek tradition, some believed the star was a flame carried by Eos, goddess of the morning, to light the way for hope entering the world. These retellings blurred the boundaries between myth and faith, transforming the star into a universal symbol, the light that bridges heaven and earth, mortal and divine. Even in the art of storytelling itself, the star became a motif of transformation. Writers spoke of it as a guide through the darkness of time, a recurring symbol in tales of rebirth, forgiveness, and rediscovery. The same light that once led 3 kings across the desert now shone in the hearts of poets and painters, a reminder that every act of creation is its own small Bethlehem. And still, the mystery deepened. The more people searched for explanations, the more the star seemed to slip away from certainty. Perhaps that was always its purpose, to remind us that some wonders are meant not to be understood, but to be felt. The light of the Star of Bethlehem became a mirror through which each age saw its own reflection. Sometimes faith, sometimes science, sometimes longing. And so, across centuries and civilizations, the star continued to shine, not only as the herald of one sacred birth, but as a symbol of the unending search for truth. It invites us to look beyond the nativity, beyond even belief itself, and to wonder what else might lie hidden among the constellations. For the story of the star, like the night sky it belongs to, is endless, an eternal whisper reminding us that we, too, are travelers beneath the same boundless heavens. The story of the Star of Bethlehem is not confined to scripture or to faith alone. It has wandered far beyond the manger, crossing into myth, astronomy, philosophy, and even the language of dreams. Over time, the star became something larger than its origin, a beacon of wonder that glimmers through every age, inviting both the devout and the curious to lift their eyes toward the sky. What began as a single radiant point above a humble stable grew into a cosmic question, a riddle about destiny, light, and the mysterious order of the universe. Among ancient astronomers, the search for the star's truth became a lifelong pursuit. Babylonian scholars, whose eyes had long studied the heavens, recorded celestial conjunctions that they believed foretold divine births. They spoke of Jupiter and Saturn aligning in the constellation of Pisces, symbols of kingship and faith meeting in the sign of the sea, the eternal. Centuries later, Johannes Kepler, studying the same heavens through the lens of a telescope, wondered if such an event might have been what inspired the story. To him, it was not merely a myth, but a fusion of astronomy and theology. where the language of the stars spoke to human hearts in ways numbers never could. Yet, even those who sought scientific explanations often found themselves drawn to something deeper. They discovered that the more they tried to measure the light, the more profound its mystery became. For how could the movement of planets explain the timing, the symbolism, the story that transcended generations? The star, in its quiet brilliance, refused to be caged by reason alone. It seemed to belong equally to the sky and to the soul. In the centuries that followed, mystics began to weave the tale into new forms. Some claimed the star was not a celestial body at all, but a manifestation of divine energy, a light born from the harmony of heaven and earth. They said it appeared not only in the sky, but within those who were ready to see. According to their vision, the true miracle of Bethlehem was not the appearance of a light above, but the awakening of light within. Each human soul, they said, carries a hidden star that shines brightest in the moments of faith, love, and wonder. Across cultures, the idea of a guiding star appeared again and again. In the deserts of North Africa, nomads told stories of a star that appeared to lost travelers, leading them toward hidden oases. In Chinese legend, the Star of Compassion was said to shine upon the birth of sages, its glow marking those destined to bring peace. The Mayans, too, studied celestial patterns and believed that the stars marked not just time, but purpose, that every event on earth was mirrored in the heavens. The legend of the Star of Bethlehem found kinship in all these stories, blending into a universal truth. That light, wherever it appears, speaks the same silent language of hope. Some even believed that the star's return would mark the beginning of a new age, when humanity would rediscover its forgotten connection to the divine. Ancient texts hinted at cycles of illumination, moments when heaven's door opened just wide enough for mortal eyes to glimpse eternity. Poets and philosophers later took up the star as a symbol of human aspiration. To them, it was not a relic of theology, but a metaphor for the search for meaning. The star stood for everything that calls us beyond ourselves, the yearning to know, to create, to believe. It became the emblem of both faith and imagination, two lights that have always burned together in the human spirit. Even in modern times, when science can measure the faintest starlight, the legend endures. Telescopes can reveal the age of galaxies, but not the reason why their beauty moves us. The Star of Bethlehem reminds us that knowledge and wonder are not opposites. They are companions on the same journey. The more we understand, the more we are reminded that mystery still surrounds us, as vast as the sky itself. And so the tale continues to shimmer, somewhere between history and eternity. Whether it was a planetary dance, a comet, an angel, or a miracle, the truth of the star lies not in what it was, but in what it means. It is the light that appears when we look upward with open hearts, the moment when faith and curiosity meet. The star endures because we still search the heavens, not only to learn what they hold, but to remember why we were made to look up at all. Through centuries of storytelling, the Star of Bethlehem became a mirror, reflecting the questions each age dared to ask about the divine. In medieval manuscripts, it shimmered like a secret sigil in illuminated margins, painted with gold leaf and reverence. Artists rendered it as a burning jewel suspended over endless night, a tear of heaven that fell softly upon the human world. In their hands, the star was not only light, but love, an eternal gesture of guidance offered to a world that often forgets its way. In monasteries, monks spoke of the star as a mystery of alignment, not merely of planets or prophecy, but of the human heart aligning once more with its maker. They said that when the soul grows silent enough, a similar light awakens within, an interior Bethlehem where the divine is born again in every age. The star, then, was not just an ancient memory, but a recurring moment in the soul's long journey toward awakening. It was the promise that no matter how far humanity strays into darkness, there will always appear, somewhere in the distance, a single light that calls us home. Mystics of the East saw the story as an allegory of inner vision. The Magi's journey across deserts was not only a tale of geography, but of consciousness itself, the pilgrimage every soul must make to find the center of truth. They interpreted the star as the third eye, the gate between the seen and the unseen, guiding the seeker toward enlightenment. To them, Bethlehem was not a place, but a state of being where the eternal child of light is born within every heart ready to receive it. Over time, legends grew around the Magi themselves, how each represented a different path toward wisdom, one through study, one through intuition, and one through devotion. The star was the force that united them, proving that truth is not owned by any single tradition, but shared among all who are willing to follow its light. It was a symbol of cosmic unity, reminding humanity that beneath the countless languages, creeds, and histories, there burns one shared desire to return to the source of light. As the centuries unfolded, the star continued to evolve with the world. In the Renaissance, it appeared in paintings as a perfect sphere of gold radiance, its light merging heaven and earth in a single act of divine artistry. Philosophers of the Enlightenment reimagined it as a metaphor for human reason, an emblem of discovery and progress shining through the dark ages of ignorance. Yet even as knowledge expanded, the mystery of that ancient light refused to fade. The deeper we gazed into the cosmos, the more we began to sense that perhaps the story was not about a single star at all, but about the eternal dialogue between creation and its creator. In modern times, astronomers have traced every possibility: the path of comets, the conjunction of planets, the flares of dying stars. Some have even found records of celestial events around the time of the Nativity that match the descriptions passed down through sacred text. And yet, for all the data and calculation, the story remains untouched by certainty, protected by the gentle veil of mystery that has always surrounded it. The truth of the star seems to hide not in the sky, but in the quiet awe it leaves within those who look for it. For poets and dreamers, the star continues to live as a symbol of hope in a restless world. It whispers to the sleepless, to the wanderers, to those standing on the edge of despair, reminding them that light has always been strongest when night is at its deepest. The same light that once guided the wise still waits for us in the silence between thoughts, in the kindness we show, in the faith we keep despite our doubts. It is the star we carry, unseen but unforgotten, glowing softly within. Perhaps that is the lasting power of the legend, that it refuses to belong to one time, one people, or one belief. It belongs to anyone who has ever searched for direction in the dark, who has ever felt the stirring of wonder when gazing at the night sky. It belongs to the child who still believes in miracles, and to the philosopher who still admits that some truths are too vast for logic to contain. In the end, the Star of Bethlehem endures because it is not only a story of the past, but a pattern of the soul, a reminder that somewhere beyond the noise and confusion of the world, there is always a light waiting to be followed. It calls not just the Magi, but all of us. For though the heavens may seem silent, and the path uncertain, the journey toward the light is eternal. And perhaps that is the greatest miracle of all, that the same star still shines, not only above us, but within us, guiding us gently toward home. Night settles over the hills of Bethlehem once more. The world grows still, and the stars shimmer above like the quiet remnants of an ancient promise. Among them, one seems to glimmer with a memory older than time, the same light that guided wise men and shepherds alike, the same flame of wonder that has never truly dimmed. The story of the Star of Bethlehem is more than an event of the past. It is a reflection of how humanity looks upward when the path ahead is dark. Across centuries, beneath different skies and languages, people have searched for their own guiding stars, something that reminds them that even in the silence of the night, they are not lost. The shepherds once looked to that celestial beacon and found peace in its glow. The Magi crossed deserts, following faith more than certainty. In each of them, we see ourselves, travelers, seekers, dreamers drawn toward something luminous and mysterious. That light, whether real or symbolic, still burns quietly in the soul of the world. For many, the star became a symbol of divine love, a reminder that heaven once reached down to touch the earth. For others, it became a metaphor, the spark of inspiration, the moment of clarity that cuts through confusion and fear. Even now, we look for it in moments of beauty, kindness, or forgiveness, those small, human lights that guide us home. When the early Christians told the story of the star, they were not just recording a miracle, they were preserving hope. They lived in uncertain times, much like we do now. Empires rose and fell, and darkness often seemed stronger than light. Yet this single tale of a star shining over a humble birth carried something eternal, a promise that no night lasts forever. Over the centuries, that story transformed. Painters captured it in strokes of gold and indigo, poets spoke of it in whispers, and children gazed at its image every December, imagining that same star shining just for them. Even the songs we sing, soft and reverent, are echoes of that ancient glow. The Star of Bethlehem is no longer bound to the sky. It has become a part of how we remember goodness and how we define light. When people speak of finding direction, of following truth, or rediscovering faith, they are, in some way, following that same star, not above them, but within. Sometimes, in the quiet moments of night, you may catch yourself staring at a single star and wondering what it means. Perhaps that is the real miracle, that the story has survived not just in scripture, but in the simple act of looking upward. The heavens still remind us that something greater exists, something that watches, guides, and listens in the stillness between breaths. And so, the legend of the Star of Bethlehem endures. It moves through time like light through glass, bending, changing, yet never breaking. Its brilliance is not confined to faith or religion. It belongs to all who dream, to all who believe that there is purpose in the night sky and meaning in every glimmer that pierces the dark. As you listen, perhaps you too can imagine that ancient star shining softly above you, not distant, but near, reflected in your eyes and heartbeat. The same light that once guided kings now lives quietly in you. Every act of kindness, every moment of wonder keeps it burning. Sleep now, beneath that eternal sky. Let its gentle glow remind you that even in the darkest hour, there is always a star to follow, and always a story waiting to be told. The story of the star does not end when the dawn rises over Bethlehem. It lingers, like the soft echo of music long after the final note fades. The wise men returned to their lands, the shepherds to their flocks, and Mary held her child in quiet wonder. Yet the star, that symbol of mystery and promise, continued to glow in the hearts of all who had seen it. Centuries passed, and the world changed. Empires vanished, languages evolved, and new maps were drawn, yet that single point of light remained in memory. Artists painted it above cradles and churches, scholars debated its truth, and children still lifted their eyes each December night, searching the heavens for its return. It became more than a celestial event. It became a mirror, reflecting what each soul most needed to see. For the weary, it was rest. For the lost, direction. For the broken, healing. It became a reminder that somewhere beyond all fear and confusion, there is still something pure, bright, and unyielding. Even those who no longer believe in miracles still find comfort in that story. Because deep down, everyone carries their own version of the star, a dream, a purpose, or a memory that keeps them moving through the night. It may not shine from the sky, but it burns quietly in the heart, calling us forward, whispering that we are meant for something more. Ancient astronomers once studied the heavens, believing that the stars wrote the story of humankind. Perhaps they were right in a way. For every person who looks up at the sky and feels a flicker of awe, that is where the story continues. The same wonder that stirred shepherds 2,000 years ago now awakens in us. reminding us that the universe still speaks in light. Maybe the Star of Bethlehem was not meant to be found again. Maybe its purpose was not to guide once more, but to teach us how to see light where there seems to be none. To recognize the sacred in the ordinary, a candle in a window, a smile in a crowd, a moment of stillness when everything feels too loud. Those are the stars of today, leading us just as surely as that first one did long ago. When we tell the story of the star, we are not just remembering the past, we are rekindling its meaning. Every retelling becomes a prayer for guidance, a hope for peace, and a quiet celebration of faith renewed. And in that way, the star never fades. It passes from voice to voice, from generation to generation, glowing softly in every heart that listens. There are nights when the world feels heavy, when the skies seem too vast and silent. But even then, that light endures. It has crossed centuries, outlasted kingdoms, and survived the turning of every age. Perhaps because it is not made of flame or fire, but of something far gentler, belief. And belief, once kindled, does not easily go out. It glows in those who forgive, in those who hope, in those who give love expecting nothing in return. The Star of Bethlehem was only its beginning, a single spark in the grand story of light overcoming darkness. So when you close your eyes tonight, imagine that light drifting above you, timeless and calm. Let it settle in your thoughts, guiding you not toward a place, but toward peace. You're part of that story now, a traveler still following the star, not through deserts or distant lands, but through the quiet landscape of your own heart. And there, in that sacred silence, you will find it still shining. There is a moment in every story where silence speaks louder than words, where what remains unspoken carries the deepest meaning. So it is with the Star of Bethlehem. Its light, though vanished from the night sky, continues to echo through time in ways too quiet for the eye but unmistakable to the soul. Long after that winter night, the star's glow became something greater than itself. It transformed into a language of hope, the kind that travels beyond religion, beyond culture, reaching any heart that has ever longed for light in the dark. It whispers through the centuries, reminding us that wonder is never truly lost, it only changes form. When we stand beneath the same heavens that once shimmered over Bethlehem, we are touching that same eternity. The stars above us burn with the same ancient fire, their light crossing distances too vast to imagine, just to reach our eyes. And maybe that is the miracle, that even light born millions of years ago still finds its way to us. The story of the star endures because it is not just about faith. It is about the unbroken thread that connects all who seek meaning. Every person who has ever paused to look up, every dreamer who has ever searched for a sign, becomes part of that same cosmic lineage. The wise men followed the light across deserts. We follow it across the landscapes of our own hearts. Perhaps that is what the star has always represented, the endless pursuit of something higher, something purer. It does not demand to be understood, only remembered. For in remembering, we awaken a part of ourselves that still believes the world can be beautiful, that goodness can still triumph, that light can always return. Each December, when the world slows beneath falling snow and soft music drifts through quiet streets, the star rises again, not in the sky, but in us. It flickers in acts of kindness, in the warmth of family, in every small gesture that pushes back against the cold. In those moments, we become its continuation, bearers of light in a world still learning how to see. The star's true meaning was never limited to a single night or a single birth. It was a beginning, a sign that even in the darkest season, something divine can break through. And that promise is timeless. Whether we call it faith, love, or simply hope, it endures, the same flame that guided shepherds and kings, still guiding those who dare to dream. When the night feels endless, remember, you are walking beneath the same stars that watched over Bethlehem. Their light has crossed the ages to meet you here, and somewhere in that vastness, the echo of that first star still hums softly, reminding you that no distance is too great for light to travel, no shadow too deep for it to find its way through. So let it guide you, not outward, but inward, toward the place where quiet faith resides, where the small, steady flame of your own soul burns unafraid. For that is where the star truly lives now, not in the heavens, but in every heart that still believes in light after darkness. And when you breathe tonight beneath that endless sky, remember this. Every act of love, every moment of forgiveness, every dream that endures against all odds, they are the continuation of that star. You are its echo, its vessel, its living flame. The night may fall. The world may change. But light, once born, never truly dies. It only travels from one soul to another, across generations, across time. And as long as even one heart still follows its glow, the Star of Bethlehem will never fade.